Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this, the Airline Aviation and Aerospace Christian Fellowship Conference 1992. I'd like particularly to welcome our guests, Mr. and Mrs. Roy Castle, who will be leading and speaking at this session.
Well, I'd just like to introduce Sue, who's now going to interview me, but she doesn't want to hold the microphone.
Hello, Roy.
Well,
I'm
hello,
Sue.
Sue. There's a surprise.
And I don't know if you know anything about me, but I am a long-haul stewardess for British Airways.
You are?
Have been for the last 2 years, yes.
Good,
That's just
good.
in case nobody had let you in on the secret.
And do you enjoy the job?
Yes, it's very good, but I'm supposed to be interviewing you, Ian.
Are
Not
you?
you interviewing me.
All right, well, okay, ask
So
me
yes,
something.
I do enjoy my job
Well,
very
you
much.
certainly look the part.
Thank you. I've just had a jolly good cry in the other room, so I feel a
Have
lot
you?
better for that, yes.
You don't enjoy the job at all, then?
Oh, no, I don't.
It's a relief cry, was it?
Yes, it was. It was a relief.
right.
Letting a few things out that needed to be let out, really. So-
Good.
There you go. Anyway, welcome to the 1992
It's a
ACF
pleasure. It's good to be
conference.
here, may I tell you? It's good to be
good,
here.
Good. A burning question. Are you still the record-breaking world tap dancing champion?
Well, one of my records is still here.
It's still.
I used to be the fastest tap dancer in the world,
Right.
with 24 beats a second. But
Wow.
I held that for 17 years, and somebody took that away from me just recently.
Ah.
But I also did 1,000,000 taps inside a day, in 23 hours, 45 minutes, and that's averaging 11 beats a second for 24 hours. So I've still got that one.
That
Nobody
is
wants to
something.
challenge
Is
that
something.
one.
I don't think.
No,
Anybody
even I
here?
don't.
Anybody? No.
Yeah, you want to challenge?
No, I
It's
don't.
entirely up to you. I'm ready. I'll just applaud.
I think we'll leave that.
Yeah,
one
I
to
know,
you.
it's like
leave
do
it
it-
to the experts.
He hasn't got enough film in the camera to start with,
Right.
because it lasts a long time, you know.
It does.
It's like
You're
putting
going to give us a
8
demonstration in a minute.
Yes, ready.
Yep.
It's good on carpet.
Okay, well, I've got a few questions here. Would you mind
Okay.
if I asked you a few questions?
Not at all.
Okay, that's what you're here for. All right. Well, very simple one, first of all. I mean, I think you've answered it already, actually, just
Go
by
on.
looking.
Yeah.
How do you cope with being in the public eye all the time? I mean,
I try to avoid it.
you do, right.
Yes, I run from cameras and
do?
and interviewers and things like that.
I don't see you running at the moment.
Well, getting old.
Oh, right.
No, it's fine in the public. Gosh, somebody isn't half talking about me. Listen. That's called tinnitus, you know. For anybody who knows, you get a ringing in your ears.
Oh, right.
And
right.
it's a sign, really, that you're very hungry.
Yes,
on
it's the
occasions,
dinner bell.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you very much for that.
That's quite all right.
Um,
They'll keep ringing this until we go. You know this, don't you?
They
Yes?
will. They did this morning. in
Did
fact.
they?
Yes. Couple of other questions here. How did your family cope with your illness and the pressure of all the public wanting to know and everything?
The first part of it was very difficult for us. It was the shock, really,
Yes.
because it was something that we certainly wouldn't have expected, and we weren't planning for anything like this.
No.
And for it suddenly to come to an end, we know it doesn't come to an end, but it's almost like I have to go and leave everybody to it now, get on with it without me, was a very difficult thing to take for a while. And then, of course, as the faith comes through and the strength comes through, and Fiona had tremendous strength, because God seemed to say to her, don't panic, just stand back and see what I'm going to do here. And so she had,
Praise the
she had
Lord.
she had great faith, and of course we all felt very strong then. No matter which way it went, we felt very strong.
Yeah. Have you been a Christian for a long time? or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know it for a long time, but
Right. But you've always.
but I found that my real beliefs and feelings were so close to the Christian beliefs and feelings. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a baby Christian. I've only
Ah.
been a Christian for 3.5 months, so
Oh, well.
you could teach me a few things.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Fiona's the good one. She was born again, and it all happened for her in half an hour. Was it like that with you?
I don't know if it was that quick. It was a couple of weeks it happened.
Was it?
over,
Oh,
yes.
wow. Half an hour for Fiona. She was quick.
Wonderful.
Mm.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Dinner's being served. Thank you
Dinner's
for that.
being served.
Yes,
Yes,
we will
that's
be
fine.
along
That's
shortly.
fine. Yeah. We'll say grace from here.
An interesting question on here. Having seen your interview with Lynn Redgrave on the programme Fighting Back not so long ago, was there any reason why there wasn't any Christian influence in the interview, or was it just the interview didn't go that way?
We put plenty Christian influence in a lot of interviews,
Right.
and they didn't quite come to the top. No.
Right, okay.
I can't tell you why.
All
It's just that we certainly played our part, and then it's left to the director and people like that to do the editing. And
So you tried your best. And
there you go.
That's right. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. What made you agree to do a programme detailing the chemotherapy treatment when you weren't aware of the end result?
Well, that's why we felt. I felt that if this is going to happen, I've lived my life in public, and so why not live the bad times in public?
Right.
And I really did feel that this was a service that I could be of service to the public,
Right.
and let them see me warts and all.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to go ahead with it, even if I had died at the end of it. I wanted it to be seen exactly as it is.
Right.
First of all, for other people with cancer, and then for people with a faith or people without a faith, just to see what happens to a Christian.
Right. Absolutely.
Mm.
Did you sit down and sort of reassess your life once you found out that you had cancer,
Not really, because in quite a few of the interviews which did come through was the fact that for the last 12 to 15 years, we've lived a very strong Christian type life,
Right.
which is being loving all the time.
Right.
And so there was no remorse. There was no time where we thought, gosh,
Why
well, not even why me, but I never told you I loved you. I haven't I haven't paid enough attention to my children. How can I quickly make amends? There was none of that, because we'd done all that,
Oh, how
and
wonderful.
we'd lived through that. So there was no remorse. So that's one of the great things I recommend to everybody. If you haven't told your wife you love her, tell her now.
Tell her now,
Yes,
right.
yes.
Oh, how wonderful. Okay, how did your career start in show business? You were working in the nightclubs and...
Oh well, it started when there was a variety hall in every town.
Right.
And there was no television when I started. There wasn't any TV, not even black and white television. So there was a theatre in every town, and we used to tour about. So I could never go to church on a Sunday because I was always on a train going to the next town. You'd be in the town for the whole week doing a show twice nightly, and then on the Sunday you travel to the next town. Sometimes it's from Portsmouth to Sunderland. You know, British Rail in those days was
Very slow.
just a little bit better than it is today.
Thank you, Roy, for sharing those few words with us, and thank you so much for coming to the conference, and we look forward to hearing more from you later on.
Okay, thank you very much.
As you know, the theme for the weekend's been faith in action, and obviously over the last few months you and Roy have obviously had to really put your faith into action. Can you just explain exactly how you've had to do this?
Well, we've just known the Lord being in control of everything, every part of our lives, and it's given us a tremendous peace that I know wouldn't have been there
Yes.
without the love of Jesus.
Yes.
And knowing that He was in control, we didn't need to be afraid.
Yes.
It's been amazing.
Yes. How have you found the pressures of the press coming at you at all angles?
It's been quite a surprise because we haven't been used to it for a long time, because
Yes.
we thought Roy was gradually fading out of the business and he was
Yes.
quite happy that way, and suddenly we got all this media attention, and it was
Yes.
quite a surprise, and quite difficult for me at the first to understand what was going on, but then
Yes.
when I realised it was an opportunity for us to share our faith with so many people, even
Yes.
the reporters who came in, we were quite happy about it, and actually the press have been very good to us, very gracious to us.
Yes, yes. So have you found as a result of Roy's illness that you've been able to share your faith a lot more that perhaps you couldn't so easily do before?
Yes, I think it's presented us with opportunities that we haven't had before, but it's also presented other people with opportunities to be able to share their faith, which has been wonderful. We've stood back and watched that happen.
Yes, yes.
Fantastic.
Earlier we were talking about the programme Fighting Back with Lynn Redgrave. During that programme, Roy didn't mention too much about the faith, but you were saying that, obviously that was really part of the whole process, was the building up of faith. Can you just share a bit more about that?
Well, the programme Fighting Back was a science programme, and although we did share our faith to the cameras, as it were, they took out what they wanted, and it couldn't be made into a religious programme.
Right.
So they just, it was understated, but it was stated sufficiently for people to realise that we were Christians. Yes,
yes. How do you find now as a family that, you've obviously been through a lot over the last few months, and it sort of is dying down a little bit because of obviously the wonderful revelation that Roy is healed. How do you see, sort of life in the future for you both and as a family?
Well, we really take a day at a time, and that's what we should do anyway, really. And we enjoy every day, we make the most of now. Suddenly when you hear that you might be losing what you've got and something that's very precious, the present comes into very sharp focus, and it's worth making the most of every moment. Yes,
I can imagine that, as you say, you'd have to take one step at a time.
That's right.
So, and as a family, you're just going to do that. I understand that your daughter's going to Peru.
Yes, she's hoping to go back to Peru in January for a year.
So, and that
we'll be separated again. It's quite unusual for us all to be together anyway now, because with 4 children all grown up, they're all off doing their own thing.
Yes. That's lovely. Thank you ever so much. We really appreciated you coming on a weekend like this, and I think everybody's felt very blessed through the ministry that both you and Roy have given. And has sort of boosted our own sort of faith as well, because it's very difficult to try and understand perhaps the situation that you've been through, but it gives us that I suppose that hope, faith being hope, and sort of hold on to that. So thank you ever so much indeed for
been a real pleasure
for being here. Thank you.
Many years ago, Roy, my daughter Tina and myself were flying from London to Geneva Airport by a well-known airline, and we were on time. Your daughter was also flying to the same airport by an unmentionable airline, and they were an hour and a half late. The name I won't mention here, it's embarrassing, but nevertheless the point is that we got to the baggage hall at the same time, and we had a time of prayer together, and the 2 girls went on their way. I never ever thought in the wildest dreams, Roy, that you would come here, or what I'd be let myself into. But the question is, do you have a favourite airline, or are you...
Caledonian. Yes, I fly by diplomatic airlines. No, I think most airlines are pretty good, actually. They're all very competent. We've flown with British Airways, did us proud, and then we just recently we flew. Where was it? We went to America, wasn't it? Boston. And we went Virgin. And and they were very good. It was very good. We were well looked after, but of course they knew about the problem, and people treat me with kid gloves now. It's one of those. Oh, he's been ill, Look out. As if nobody else has ever been ill, But that was fine. We've flown Qantas Airlines. But mainly it's been British Airways we once went to Bermuda, didn't we? And we got through the triangle, no problem, you see. You don't worry about those, do you, when you've got the Lord, eh? A great pilot. So, we've enjoyed flying very much indeed, yes.
Many years ago, my wife and I were flying from Bogota to Caracas by a piston-engined aircraft, by the way, and we hit turbulence. And most of the passengers were Spanish, And of course one lady needed some insurance and she was catching hold of my hair as the insurance. Have you had any such adverse experiences on airlines, or have you been fortunate?
Well, I don't know. She couldn't have caught a hold of my hair a few weeks ago. But I've caused a problem once when I was doing Record Breakers. I was asked, you see my producer, he challenges the macho instinct every time. About 6 months ahead of this particular record attempt, he rang up and he said, he didn't say, would you like to wing walk for 3.5 hours, you see. He said, I don't suppose you feel up to doing a bit of wing walking then? So I said, what? Of course I can. Yeah, no problem, I'll do that. Yeah, wing walk, what, for 3.5 hours? Yes, no trouble. This is 6 months away. Yes, okay, I'll do that. Now it gets a bit closer and a bit closer, doesn't it, you see? And then the day arrived when, we had a 20-minute practice first of all. And then the big day arrived and it was going to be from Gatwick. And there was our plane, which was a Boeing Stearman. Do you know those, a biplane?
I don't, but someone here may.
Oh, no. You just said a few things about aeroplanes that I didn't understand, so I thought you knew everything about it. So I did a bit of practice on this, and all it is one post, you see. But because we had to stay in the air for over 3 hours and 8 minutes was the world record. It was a long record rather than a distance one. And there's just a post and a belt like that, and then you put your feet in like skis, water skis, and that's it. You stand there like this for 3.5 hours whilst the plane goes and there was only one pilot, because the other pilot's seat had got to have the extra tank for the extra petrol to keep it up in the air all the time. And but what happened was there was a backup plane as well with the Record Breakers, you see, and this had got the crew in, the camera crew, so that they could fly alongside, so we could go and they could photograph me with the cameras and everything like that. Well, what happened was that one of the cameramen was a bit overweight, apparently, I don't know, but we went off and I'm standing there like this. Then the other plane apparently tried to take off behind us and went yeah, and it was like squat in the middle of the runway and stopped Gatwick. Whichever newspaper you read, it was between 1 hour and 4 hours. Gatwick was brought to a halt, and I got the blame for that. Says Roy Castle's up to his pranks again, he said. And it was nothing to do with me. I mean, I don't check the aeroplanes, do I, to see if they're overweight. I had enough trouble just standing there and not trying to think about things like, it's only nuts and bolts, this. Because the thing was, they put me in leathers like those motorcycle fellas in all these leathers, and when you stand with just your heels flat, that was fine. You have to hold your hands here, because if you did that, the wind just took them away, see, because it was 100 miles an hour. You have to wear goggles because of the flies, otherwise you get them in your face. And so I had to have goggles, and you just stand like this. And for 3.5 hours, that's a long time. The view was beautiful. It was a lovely day. But if you look down at this carpet and you imagine that each little different colour is a field, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? You've seen it. But to see it like not through glass. But the only thing was that your heels get really hot, you see. So the heels were getting... it's all right if I come and stand over there. Heels get really hot. So the only way that you could release that particular feeling was to just move your knees forward slightly. So that relaxed these leather trousers. And with 100-mile-an-hour gale blowing at them, they were going... and it was like the school teacher going... And so I had black and blue legs, didn't I, when I came home? But that was about all. That was the only problem. I was really pleased to see the runway at Le Bourget, I can tell you. Yeah.
You're right. There's obviously another question which we all want to ask, but to me personally, you've always been around in the acting profession, and I know you're younger than me, but how did you become an actor? How did you, were your parents actors? Or
how did I get into the business? Yeah. Well, I was a song and dance man to start with as a boy. And my mum, I come from Huddersfield, where they have the have we got any Huddersfielders here? Anybody here support Huddersfield Town? Good, we're all here. Right, so so my mum was a good singer, and she sang with the Huddersfield Choral Society, and she won a competition when she was a little girl. And she heard that one of the adjudicators say, "I wish she was my daughter, I'd make her into a star." But there were 7 children, and it was a very small house, one up and one down, and as soon as she left school she had to go into the woolen mill just across the yard. And so really she felt cheated, I think. And so when I showed a little bit of show business in me, she really tried to help me along, and I think I lived out the life that she would have liked for herself. But she saw it all happen, and she saw the fruits of her labour, and she lived out the life, and so I think perhaps she felt fulfilled in the end. But it was Mum that did it for me. She got me into a show when I was about 10 called Youth on Parade, and I used to sing things like, "I'm gonna buy a paper doll that I can call my own." That's before your time, that, John.
Probably, Roy.
Yeah, and she made all my costumes and everything, so she did a great job. But that was the way I started as a song and dance man. Then we got into the variety halls. That's before there was any television. And then after that, the television came in and closed the variety halls down, and there was not much left. So slowly but surely you had to make the transition into television. And I was very lucky because I was young enough to have a go at it, and I got into the television side. And that really, I never looked back. I stayed with it when it went colour and everything.
So we never
Right. I keep standing up because of everybody at the back, you know. Is that all right? Otherwise, yeah. You don't know, I've got Fiona here. Just be quiet, will you? Don't worry, I like these dudes. It's the only time I can get a word in.
Well, in your acting profession, Roy, you must have met many famous, sorry, including yourself, of course, but we must have met many famous personalities, apart from Fiona. But do you have any special friends in the acting profession who are well known? Well, friends outside the acting profession.
I'll tell you what's quite amazing. You would think that perhaps it was all one little club and everybody knew everybody else, but we don't meet at all because everybody's getting on with their own jobs. You see, it's like pilots and air hostesses and engineers. You would think, oh, they all know each other, but you don't, do you? You know, it's like, oh, I see. He works for another airline, and so you work for another network. We get together quite a lot on these big charity nights, and you meet people and you say, hello. I remember the first time I ever met Michael Aspel, and it was like, this fell on the floor, this fell on the floor. The first time I ever met Michael Aspel was quite funny because I said, hello Michael, and he said, hello Roy, and then we said, wait a minute, we've never met. Was it? It's nice. But there are two very special mates from our point of view. From my point of view, Harry Seacombe, who was so good to me when I was just beginning to break through. And I did a Royal Variety performance, and it had gone so well, but I was in such a blue haze because it was my first one, and my mother was at that one, which was wonderful. You know, she was only sitting about 10 yards away from the Queen, so that really was the ultimate for Mum and me. And
I'm green.
I know. He said 2 words tonight and got the biggest laugh of the whole thing.
You better take his name.
But Harry Seacombe was there, and he actually ran and got me. I'd finished and taken my bow, and apparently they were still applauding in the audience, and he ran and grabbed a hold of me. He said, "Hey, come on, mate, get back on there." And he pushed me back on, and it had never been known that I was unknown, really. It had never been known that anybody had to go back and take another bow on those occasions, because they're all rather normally quite tough here. And so he was wonderful, and he really looked after me. And sometimes you get people who are the big stars, and they try and suppress everybody else, but not Harry. He was so full of love, and he always has been, you see. He was best man at our wedding, wasn't he? I was next best man.
Whilst we're talking about that, and your wife gave me permission to ask this question of you, but how did you meet your wife? Because this wasn't quite a normal meeting, was it?
I think
if
it's
the
definitely time for Fiona to say it.
You've intimidated me so much, I haven't got anything to say. Right, well, shall I stand up as well? Because I'm a bit smaller than Roy, not a lot. He's shrinking because he's getting old.
Snap. I'm glad I grew my hair. Now I tower over her again.
Well, John said I was famous. I wasn't, but I was a chorus dancer in a pantomime. When I very first left school, I was trained as a dancer. I'd love to be able to tell you I was a ballerina, but I wasn't. And the very first show I did after I left school was at the Coventry Hippodrome with Harry Seacombe and Morecambe and Wise. And I made friends with Eric Morecambe and his family, and maintained that friendship over the years. I actually did another show with Morecambe and Wise later on, and continued to be friendly with them. And I used to go and spend weekends at their home. And one time we were sitting watching television, and Roy came on, and I just said to Eric in a very casual way, "If ever you do a show with Roy Castle, will you introduce me, you see?" And so he just said, "Yes, okay," and that was it. And it was probably about a year later that he phoned me and said, "Hey, I'm doing a show with Roy, do you want to come along?" So I said, "Oh, yes, please." That was my first mistake. That got a bigger laugh than any of yours as well. So anyway, I went along with Joan, Eric's wife, and just before the show started, Eric took me into Roy's dressing room, and do you want me to go? Oh, I'll do it. And he just simply said, "Roy, this is Fiona, she's in love with you," and left. I could have killed him. And I think I wanted to die on the spot, and I think you felt just about the same, didn't you? Yeah. So that's how we met. It worked. I don't know, did it work?
Well, I'm still
he was very slow. Roy was very slow in those days. And about 2 weeks later, I went round to Eric, his dressing room at the Palladium where he was working. I was working at the Palace Theatre, so between shows I went round and I said, "I don't think I made much of a hit there. Roy hasn't phoned me since." And he said, "Okay, forget it. You know, that's it, you know." So I did. And then suddenly I got this phone call from Eric saying, this is about a week later saying, "You're going out with Roy for the evening." And apparently what had happened was that Ernie Wise had said, "Roy, would you like to come out for a meal with me?" So he said, "Yes, that'd be lovely." So he said, "And bring a girlfriend." So Roy said, "Well, I don't have a girlfriend." And with that, Eric dialed my number and said, "You're going out."
A year later, we were married. Yeah. And now when we have rows, well, when we did have, I used to throw rocks at his bedroom window. But that was that's the way it all happened, sir.
You find marriage a sort of a hardship sometimes, then, Roy, do you?
Marriage a hardship?
That isn't on the script.
No. Do you want to just come over here? I'll tell you here. No, this gets a bit serious here now, because I think we at one stage went through the particular problems that nearly all marriages go through. I'm quite sure, and it's the stage where lots and lots of marriages break. And we had 4 young children, and the eldest was 8. And Fiona seemed as if the only thing she ever did was wash clothes and feed children and wash clothes and wash children and feed clothes and take them to school, bring them back, do their homework with them, put them to bed, wash clothes, get the food ready. And excuse me, I've still got some radiation over the chest, so it makes me cough a bit. But she felt as if she was locked in, totally locked in, and that I was having the life of O'Reilly, driving up and down the motorway to one job, and then coming back home at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then getting up and seeing the children a little bit, and then off again on the motorway, doing another job, going to the television studios. And I was having a great time, and all I wanted was to say, "Oh, give me a few days at home. I'd love it, I love it, I love it." And so we got into that awful situation where each one of us thought that the other was having the better time. And that gets a bit difficult, and that's where a lot of people split. And I can understand it. I really can. I can see how it was at this point. Most people would say, "I can't stand it any longer. This is not the way we're supposed to live. I just can't take this." But the wonderful thing that happened for us was that Fiona was at the end of her tether, and she was having depression. Apparently, she was always keen for me to come home, but when I got home, she gave me a hard time. And I was keen to come home, and then I met the old frosty face, and I thought, "Oh, what's the point in all this?" You see. And we had 4 children there too. "Hello, kids. How you doing? How you doing?" Listen, you know, it was very difficult. But I don't know if you want to carry on here. I think you should actually. This was the crunch. This is the crunch time. This is what all Christians really should hear, and all non-Christians should hear, especially people who are up against it and think that the world is giving them a bad time. Because Fiona was so desperate that she knelt down. I wasn't there. She knelt down by the side of the bed and she said, "God, if there is a God there at all, you've got to help me. And you've got to help me now," you see. And the phone rang. And it was a lady that we know vaguely as a Christian. And she said, "Fiona, you're on my mind. I'd love to have a chat. When can we have a chat?" You see. So Fiona said, "Oh, I haven't got the time. I really haven't got the time. I've got far too much to do," and put the phone down. Right? And then she thought, and this lady's name was Taylor. So she had to go through the whole book of Taylors before she found out which was the lady. "Are you the one that just rang me?" "No." "Pardon?" No. "Are you the one?" And eventually yes, I was the one. She said, well, I am sorry, I want to come and see you right away. Now, from my point of view, Fiona suddenly said, I'm going out. She got into the car and drove off. So I thought, that's it then, she's gone. And I thought she was not going to come back. She hadn't packed a suitcase or anything, but I thought, she's got a credit card. And when I tell you, especially all the Christians will know this, when I tell you that she came back a half an hour later, and it was that girl that Eric Morecambe introduced me to again. Absolutely. It was just like this place had developed all spiders' webs and stinky, and it had all got rising damp. And suddenly this man came in and whitewashed the walls and cleaned the carpets, and it was all smelling beautiful again. And that was in half an hour. And she didn't say anything. She was just calm. Now you all know what had happened. This Tamara, this friend, had said, you're on my mind, I think you need some help. You are a Christian, are you? And Fiona said, well, we go to church. And I always go to church on Sundays, and yes, I think I'm a Christian. So she said, but have you ever asked Jesus to take over, to come in and run the whole situation for you? Then you just relax. You know, you get the driver. You have your own pilot. And so, how do you like that one, eh? And but you know what I'm talking about. And Fiona said, well, no. So she said, well, don't you think it's time that you accepted Jesus now as your sole saviour, to take over, to do everything for you? And so that's what happened. Fiona poured out her heart, and there were plenty of tears. But then she came home and she was this new original person again. And this went on for quite a long time, because I was thinking, oh no, we'll wait and see. And it must have been a month later that she eventually said to me, have you noticed a difference in me at all? And purely because I like mischief, I said, no. But I knew straight away what had happened, and that had a knock-on effect for me that you can't believe. And so for anybody that is in this kind of trouble and has a problem and feels as if they have to try and wrestle with the whole world, all you have to do is to say, hey Lord, come on, I can't handle this now, it's all yours, come on, please, please. And that's how it all suddenly it really went back into place, like putting somebody's back, you know, when you've been like walking about like this and suddenly you go, hey, whoa, we're okay again. And that's what happened to us, and that was thank you, Lord, that was just wonderful, you know. And here we are now. That was 19 years ago.
Were you a Christian at that time, Roy, or did you come into the saving grace of our Lord a little later?
It's a different story for me. I think I've always been a Christian, but I never actually. You really need that, do you? Interview the carpet. Pardon? I'll lie down to be interviewed. Ask me another, yeah. No, it's only that I feel I like to see everybody. In case you're falling asleep at the back there. From my point of view, it was a long realization, what they call a slow burn in show business, where you suddenly realize you've had your leg pulled, or you suddenly realize a situation. And the way I put it is that I've always felt a sense of values, and I've always felt compassion. I've always felt I don't like causing any kind of trouble with anybody, and neither do I have a special smile for somebody who's more important, you know, because everybody's as important as, in my book, like everybody. And so the fact that I'm in show business and a lot of people look at me, fine, but it doesn't make me really important. In fact, it makes me less important in a lot of ways, because I'm patted on the back a lot, whereas a lot of people do marvellous jobs and can't do without them. They don't get any pats on the back. They're important, very, very important. So I've always felt this way, and I've always felt as if I was holding somebody's hand. I've always felt that I've been cared for somehow. And I never looked up to see who it was. Of course, it's Jesus, isn't it? Hey, it's you! Hey, man, great. And so that's the way it happened for me. And I like the straightforward Christianity. You know, I'm not too good at the frilly bits around the edges, but straight down the middle. This is what we do, right? And that's me. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but that's the way I see it, and that's the way I feel, right? And so I'm a Christian. Yes.
Amen.
Yeah, have been a long time.
You've had a serious illness, as we all know. I don't know if you want to share anything about that, but the question I was going to ask was that, did you find it helpful to be a Christian in this rather difficult time for you both, I guess?
Yes, it's that's really when you consider what we're supposed to have gone through, and yet the greatest part about this is it strengthens your faith. Doesn't make you think, God, you're forsaking me. What are you doing this to me for? The strongest thing that came through for me, through all of it, and through the really bad bits, was I'm not actually enjoying this, Lord, to be honest with you, but it's your will, not mine. And because that was so strong, I felt that if this is going to have to be, it's going to have to be. And I must remain very strong in the Lord and very faithful to the Lord. And because when you really feel as if perhaps you are going to die on earth, then the main things come to your mind, and you can make up your mind very quickly about things, even about ordinary things, where I would dally and think, is this going to upset so-and-so, is this going to upset them? You ponder and try and make up your mind eventually, but when they tell you you've got a few months left, you can make decisions like that, straight as an arrow. And my Christianity was much, much stronger. And so that was great for me to realize that, because there was the very, very strong chance that this was my last few months on earth, really.
Roy, there are people here who are not Christians, as we know Christianity.
Shameful!
Do you think it's something that you would personally like to recommend to them, and would you like to?
Well, I'm not a pusher. You know, it's like I'm not a pusher of Christianity. I think that the strongest way to show your faith is in your own behavior. And I think if you want someone else to be a Christian, they have to admire you. And for me, it's fantastic, it's wonderful. For other people, it very likely would be. In fact, I know it would be. But at the same time, I don't tell them what to eat, I don't tell other people what to wear, and I don't tell other people what to believe. But if they like what I like, then they'll come along.
Thank you, Roy. Just one other question from my point of view. You mentioned you had 4 children just now. Would you like to share a little about them, what they're doing? Are they Christians as well? We've met Julia. Julia has spoken at one of the meetings which you know about. But we don't know anything more about your family, other than you mentioning 4 of them just now.
We ought to stand up together because Daniel is coming down tomorrow to take part and to do some work with you in the workshops, and he's our oldest. He's 27 and he's just got himself engaged to a lovely Norwegian girl, because he's been working in Norway with a group called YWAM. Have you heard of YWAM? Youth with a Mission, or Youth Without Any Money, or
What else? Hey, you're stealing all his jokes. It's also young women after men. That's what it is. That's what he
says. He's been with Youth with a Mission now for about 5 years, and he's been based up in Norway for about 2 years, or perhaps a bit more, but he's at the moment he's working with our own church to encourage youth into mission, into getting out there. He's got a project called the Boot Project, and it's literally get out there, you know. So that's his idea, and that's what he's doing at the moment. And Julia, you've talked about Julia. Julia's a friend of John's daughter's, and she's 25. And she's working in London at the moment, but going to Peru in January, at the beginning of January, to work. She's actually going out as a teacher to teach English as a foreign language, but her real desire is to work amongst the street kids out there. She did a short-term missionary stint a few years ago for about 6 months, wasn't it? And she really lost her heart out there. She was working in an orphanage at that time, and she's never really settled back in England. I don't think she can cope with the materialistic society we live in after she's seen what goes on out there. And I think that people say that, don't they? Once they've had a taste of other countries, third world countries and so on, they can't cope with the affluence here. For all that we're in recession, it's a totally different thing, isn't it? Right, Anto's next. You can do Anto.
Which one's that?
Just because you prefer to forget that one.
No, this is Antonia, and she's very clever actually. She plays piano and she sings and she plays trumpet, but she's a stage manager because she doesn't like the butterflies. You know the feeling, don't you, when you have to sing in public? You go, oh, and talk in public or do anything. She's very clever, and in one sense, I feel that she could have been quite big in the business, but if it hurts, there's no point doing it. You have to really want to do this business, otherwise you have a nervous breakdown very quickly. So she's a stage manager, so she's well connected with show business and well respected, by the way. A lot of people I was at a do today at the Dorchester. And
he's name dropping again.
Yes. No, it was the Dorchester in Rotherham. She sort of, when she comes home, you say, have you had a good day? How's it been? Okay, fine. You know, as parents, you get to know nothing, do you? But apparently she's well respected, but she doesn't like the butterfly side of having to perform. But she loves the business, and she's a strong Christian. She plays the piano in church every Sunday, sometimes trumpet. If the pianist turns up, we play trumpet and everything. And then there's our youngest son, who's just 19 now, Benjamin, and he's got a year's course at the Guildhall School of Music now in London, and it's a much sought after course. He didn't quite get in the first time he went in for the audition because he was too young. It's a post-grad course, and most of them are 25 and upwards, and he's only 18 when he went in for it, so he didn't quite get in. But 2 days before the course started, the phone rang and they said, listen, we do have a place now, so if Benjamin would like to come along for this year's, it's a jazz course, and he's so keen, and he's a good player. And so they said if he'd like to come along, and so that's where he is now, and he's doing extremely well. Amongst the good musicians now, they're all saying he's a little monster. And we've been saying that for years, haven't we? But now he's a big monster, and he's doing very well. So that's and he's a Christian too. They're all Christians, very,
in spite
very
of
keen.
us, I would say.
Yes, yeah, that's right. They took it for themselves. We didn't push. Really, I didn't push him into playing an instrument or anything. I was happy when he took it. I introduced him the usual piano lessons and things like that for all four of them, and they all rejected it eventually, but came back to it from their own wishing, and that's much stronger then, because it's a desire rather than they're just doing it to please us. So we really are very happy, and none of them are materialistic at all. So I'm thrilled about that. They all care for other people properly, which is nice.
Thank you both. Regrettably, we're running out of time, but there is a few moments left if anyone would just like to ask Roy or Fiona a question. We have tried to cover the most popular questions which you are likely to ask. So if we haven't quite touched your area, please feel free to ask. But we only have a few moments left now, 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, they shut the coffee bar before 10 o'clock apparently. So
Roy, we know
yes.
that Cliff Richards makes a lot of publicity in his Christianity and in the work he does, and we know Cliff from coming to London Airport. You probably know he's been up there. How do you cope with your Christianity in show business?
Well, I think that Cliff is so very strong because there's such a lot of criticism aimed at him and fun aimed at him, and but he's unshakable.
That's right.
And this is what happens, you see, if you make your statement and then you are consistent. Now Cliff has remained consistent, and he hasn't, there is nobody can say, but what about, you see, because there is nothing there. It's once like an American newspaper critic who used to try and knock people. He said there's only 2 people in the world that he couldn't knock at that time, and that was Perry Como and Lassie. You know. And you'd have to include Cliff there. And so we stand as firm as we possibly can on truth, you see. And now I'm not scared to own up that our lives have not been perfect, but that slowly you are directed into the right direction, and that's just like growing up. That's like maturing, and then it's almost like running the whole length of Oxford Street, looking at all the shops, and then eventually you decide what you want. And I've seen all walks of life. I've seen all kinds of people. I've seen poor people, rich people, and people with big heads, people who are humble, and I've narrowed it all down, and it really is my faith in Jesus Christ, and trying to think, how would he handle this, and try and get a feel of how he would have lived his life in today, and trying to do it. That's all. I know I don't make a great job of it, but I try. We've got to keep trying, yeah. But you do come under fire. Doesn't matter though. Fireproof, aren't we? Fireproof. Bing, bing. Especially when you got no hair. Bing, bing. That was the best part about being bald. You could hear it raining. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Perhaps just one more question, Brian.
Roy, do you feel that the Lord has actually healed you in your illness? And if so, do you feel that you should publicly give the Lord credit for it?
Yeah. Do I feel that the Lord has actually healed me, and should I give the Lord credit for it? As long as it doesn't backfire, you see. I don't think I dare be that brave, because my specialists say that although it appears to be clear there, the history of this particular type of cancer is that it could pop up again like any time. It might not, but it might at any time. And if I come out saying, the Lord has healed me, and I give him all credit for it, and then in a week's time I'm back in hospital with it, can you imagine what the non-believers will say? So I don't think that will be doing the Lord the favour. I feel that I should just be very happy for each day and praise the Lord for each day and see how it goes from there, really. I think it would be, the specialists won't say. If they said to me, "You're clear, pal, that's absolutely clear, and because of our experience you will never ever get that cancer back again in any form," then I would feel a bit more that I could say, I am clear. But you see, I don't want to appear a freak. I wanted the Lord to use me, and I've kept saying, "Lord, here I am, I'm willing." And I felt him saying, "Okay, I'll tell you when." It's like sitting on the subs bench, isn't it, at a football match. "I want to get out there." Just stay there, I'll tell you when, you know. And then suddenly, he chose me for this. Now, I wouldn't have chosen it this way, would I? I wouldn't, but how powerful it is. You see, there's much more power in it now because it's real. And so my faith is very, very strong, but I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want it to go wrong and have all the people who said, "There you are, told you so," say, "No, no, 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 no." And so I hope you know what I'm saying. I would be, if the Lord said to me, you're cured, pal, you're okay, tell everybody. If I felt that happen, and I would know, but I don't want to let him down, and I don't want to let anybody in that can say, "See, he's let you down, you're going to die." You see, so that's why. I hope you understand that.
Gives a better understanding of where you're at as well.
Pardon?
Gives us a better understanding of where you are.
Yeah, that's right. I'm, as you can hear, I still have got the radiation in there, because I had an X-ray 2 nights ago, and they can see where the radiation scars are. I think you were talking about this, weren't you, earlier on? They can see there's a sort of shadow there, which would be alarming had they not known that it was the scars from the radiation. But that's okay, because that's par for course. And also my blood is, they took a blood test, and that is spot on. Everything is absolutely right. So that's one of the big barometers of my condition. And of course I feel good, I feel fine. I'm ready to take on anybody. And so from that point of view I feel really great. But they say, with reservations, please, 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 because they've seen it happen so many times before. So I don't want to do the Lord a disfavour and let anybody in to say, "Ha ha ha, see? What were you saying last week?"
Could I add
sorry?
Could I add a little postscript to that? Because to me it's very important, this aspect of it. And one of the things that we were feeling, in a sense, a bit condemned about, or I was, because of what people were saying, was that we weren't just trusting God for his divine healing, and that Roy was using the medical profession to heal him, which I think is all part of God's plan anyway. And I went to one of our pastors, and I was talking to him about this, because it was really troubling me, and 1 or 2 people were sort of saying, "Oh, well, you're not really a Christian if you're not trusting God for everything." And he said, actually, you have to have a very clear word from the Lord to know that he is going to heal you in that way, and if not, then you must trust the medical profession. That actually released us totally from any sort of feeling of condemnation. And also the fact that we can't give God the glory for the healing, we feel is immaterial, because all the reporters who've come to our house we've been able to share the love of Jesus with, we've sat them down in our sitting room, and they've all heard the gospel, and they haven't reported it necessarily, and they've misquoted us lots of times. But we feel, well, we're just vehicles for the Lord in whatever's happening. As Roy said earlier, your will, not mine. And the way that the Lord has used it has just, maybe it's been a quieter experience than just shouting out, "The Lord's healed me," but perhaps it's slower and longer lasting. For instance, we're here, praise God. So
we have claimed the victory for you today.
Oh, that's lovely, isn't it?
And we don't underestimate the power of prayer. We really have been so aware of that, and we're really grateful to all of those who've prayed for us. We've been so aware of being supported. I say we, it's easy for me, isn't it? I've only been standing around, but for Roy it's been absolutely brilliant, so thank you all.
Did you really get a get well card with 30,000 signatures on it?
It was 15,000 signatures, yes, you see, the stories grow, don't they? No, this was from Spring Harvest, and the 4 different camps, and they just said, look, we've got a card here, if you just, all the people who would like to send Roy a message, just write on the card. And they had to get more and more cards, and eventually when they delivered the card, it was the length of a tennis court and this high, and it was signed, fully signed on both sides. There were 15,000 signatures there, and from all kinds of people. I haven't read them all yet because it's got such a cast list, you know. And but there was one which was from an American couple saying, we don't know who you are, but God bless you just the same. It was lovely, wasn't it? And we've still got it at the house. They delivered it, and we've still got it at the house because it's too big to throw away.
Record breaker.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, lovely. But that kind of warmth that I got straight away from the whole country. In fact, from other countries as well. I got some wonderful cards and messages and love and prayer, and it was so strong that, as I said to Don McLean, I said that the prayers going up for me have interfered with all the television stations. Because he gave me some advice when I was bald. He said I could go to a fancy dress ball as a roll-on deodorant. He said. But there's I'm not the kind of person who can be too not morbid but too serious ever, because it's not my lifestyle. I'm not clever enough to be serious, so everything is giggle for me, and we've had a lot of laughs about it, haven't we? Really, we've taken it not quite as seriously as we should have done, I suppose, but the Lord's really seen us through a lot of pain and a lot of anguish, without it being painful and without the real anguish. There seems to have been a real reason behind it all, and for that I can say that I've done nothing. I've just been an instrument for the Lord to work through, and as long as I can just be honest and open to everybody, then I want the Lord to shine through. I don't want to start taking anything on. None of the success is due to me at all. I've been used by the Lord, which I've always wanted. So there you are. That's nice, isn't it?
Thank you, Roy.
All right.
Lovely. There will be just one announcement. There will be a prayer meeting in the library after the coffee break, but it's not a major. It's just an extra. We would rather you go to bed and catch up on your sleep if you've had a tiring day. But for those who'd like to pray for the conference, there will be a prayer meeting in the library after the coffee break. One last question. When I talked to your wife, she said, I can sing, and Roy can sing as well. And I don't know if you're going to sing or not for us tonight, but after you've sung, would you like to close the meeting, please? Then I can sit down there and rather up there.
What are we going to sing? Which one are we going to sing?
Boom, boom, I have decided. Boom, boom, I have. Right.
I have decided
to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided Jesus. No turning back. No turning back.
The world behind me. The cross before me. The world behind me. The cross before me. The world behind me. Before me. No turning back. No
no turning back.
Though none go with
Though none go with me,
though I will follow.
though none go with me, I will follow.
Though none go with
Though none go with me,
still
I will follow.
No turning back.
No turning back. No turning back. Sing glory, glory, and hallelujah. Sing hallelujah, glory, and hallelujah. Sing glory, glory, hallelujah. No turning back. No turning back. No turning back. No turning back.
Shall we just close in prayer? Father, we want to thank you for this evening. We thank you for the fun and the laughter and the joy. And we thank you that it's because of Jesus that we can have that fun and laughter and joy, because of what he's done for us. And Lord, we want to give the glory to you because you have done it all for us. You have paid the price at Calvary for all that we are now able to do. You've given us life, Lord, and we thank you so much. And Lord, I just commit each one of us into your hands for the night. We ask for a quiet night, for a good rest, and for joy and peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.